Hey everybody, Sam Johnson here with PayTrace, and I am joined with James Shepard of CC Sales Pro and my colleague Eric Jenks with PayTrace. Hey guys.
Hey, Sam.
Last week we all sat down together and did a presentation on this new project, James, that you've been putting together, ISOAmp, and a partnership that PayTrace and ISOAmp have gone in together with some pretty cool tools to help agents sell more effectively. James, do you want to give a quick pitch on kind of what we discussed last week?
Sure. So, first of all, ISOAmp, we talked a little bit about that, did a little demo. ISOAmp, of course, is a full feature platform that does statement analysis. We have our quick estimate tool. So basically everything from hello to yes, when you're talking about merchant sales, everything from walking in and grabbing the merchant's attention with a savings estimate, all the way through getting them to say yes and presenting your technology and presenting everything to them. So within the context of that, one of the things that we were really missing was this idea of interchange optimization. So we have all this presentation technology, we have all the statement analysis technology. Why don't we handle this? So the reason, of course, is we didn't really have we had the technical ability, but not the knowledge on the back end of the secret sauce of how does interchange optimization work. So we, of course, partnered with PayTrace, which we're very excited about, and we were able to leverage your knowledge together with our technology to be able to really have just a simple way to implement interchange optimization and then take those savings from interchange optimization and display those on the proposal for the merchant.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're really excited about this tool. We've got to see a really great demo of it last week. If you guys missed that call, go ahead and check the link in the description. We'll link out the video for you guys so you can really see that initial conversation. Eric, James introduced PayTrace as kind of these experts into interchange optimization, and what is PayTrace at a high level, and what is it that we do?
Yeah, I love that. James described from hello to yes. And, as far as this tool, PayTrace, we're extremely interested in making merchants happy. We're a payment gateway that, strongly believes we can leverage technology to make life easier for merchants. And that makes the most sense in, the B2B space, business to business and business to government space, where folks want to avoid downgrades, right? They want to optimize interchange. And so we're super excited for this particular partnership because we've had a lot of folks that have come to us and said, Eric, I have this merchant and it seems like they might be paying too much, but it's hard for me to quantify that. I want to, with integrity, come over and tell somebody that, hey, on this statement, you were paying, $10,000 and we think that it could be $9,000 or whatever that is. But one of the things that we don't do, right, is all the other aspects of a proposal. We focus on the interchange optimization piece and making sure it's quality data. And so that's where I see these two things coming together really nicely and complementary from putting tools in merchants' sales reps' hands so that they can, with confidence, go to a merchant and say, look, on that statement back in June, we think that you left this amount of money on the table, and interchange optimization can help identify what that is. So
I love it. Yeah, this tool is this term sounds a little fluffy, but I'm going to say revolutionary because this is unprecedented. There you go. I mean, for real though, what other tool out there can take some of these really great programs that we can leverage and easily decipher some of these most complex merchant statements that we've ever seen? Guys, I really recommend, if you haven't seen this video, this demo of James Shepard showing us ISOAmp, definitely check that out. It's awesome. So whether you're an ISO, an agent, right, this is going to cater to most people. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, guys, we were a bit time compressed the other week, and we had a lot of questions that we just couldn't tackle. So I think we wanted to take some time here today and really just kind of go over some of the frequently asked questions that we are getting on the call that we couldn't necessarily address at the time. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot, maybe keep you on your toes a little bit here, but I just want to dive a little bit more into right, some of the meat and really what our partners wanted to get away from this. So I want to just touch a little bit more on this concept of interchange optimization. And guys, this is going to be a question for both of you, but um, we're hearing this term interchange optimization. It's a lot of syllables in there. James, maybe let's start with you. What do you really define interchange optimization as being?
Sure. So, I mean, I think at its core, it's cost savings. And the difference with interchange optimization versus, say, cost cutting by cutting the transaction fee, the authorization fees or the basis points of markup, is that with interchange optimization, we're taking this cost that our industry has identified. Hey, there's this interchange cost. We're going to be passing this through, and we're actually decreasing that underlying cost. And so by reducing that cost without having to reduce the markup, we're showing the savings, but then of course we're also preserving the margin. And so at its core, interchange optimization is saying the way this merchant is currently processing, the way they're submitting their transactions and the data they're submitting with them is not ideal. As Eric likes to say, it doesn't represent best practices. And if we can help them to change, whether it's technology, the way they're submitting transactions, maybe the gateway they're using, whatever that change needs to be to get these transactions submitted in a different fashion, we might be able to see a shift in interchange cost on that transaction.
And I want to mention something that you said there that I think was pretty important, James, was we're helping reduce cost without affecting our margins, right? That's pretty powerful. A lot of people are out there selling specifically on costs, and to be able to do that, they're having to cannibalize their own profitability, which
Your savings have to come from somewhere. It'd be better if they came from the banks rather than from your bank account. So
exactly. Eric, now I know that I've heard you talk a lot about interchange optimization
Ad nauseum.
Exactly. And in your opinion, I know there's a little bit more to cost savings. Could you elaborate on what your thoughts are?
Yeah, I mean, when we think about optimization, it's like I think about, a buddy of mine who's a mechanic. He wants to do fuel optimization. He just wants to get the most out of his fuel economy, right? Another buddy who owns a restaurant. He wants to reduce waste, right? And so he, throws out a lot of produce. And what can he do to optimize getting the most bang for his buck there? Interchange is a core component of the cost with payments, right? And in fact, I think, James, you'd probably agree, it's probably the most expensive cost within payments. And so if we can optimize, get the most value out of our biggest expense, it can make a really big difference on the bottom line. And so at the end of the day, you can't get away without a cost component. But I love about the interchange optimization conversation, though, is it really helps the sales reps start to position themselves as a consultant. And James talks about this in his book. And so I'll just side plug, check out James's ebook on this, because it allows someone to start coming in and just start saying, there may be a reason why you have a gas guzzling engine, right? Maybe it is a V8 for a reason and you have to pay standard. Okay, well then so be it. But you might be able to go into a Tesla, right? You might be able to kill that fuel efficiency altogether by doing these things. And now you just start to have that conversation of when does that make sense? And so the thing about interchange optimization in my mind is that it's a wonderful tool to start talking about quality data and quality consulting to see what's going on in the business environment. Oftentimes, and I'll just say, I'm going to oversimplify, 9 times out of 10, the merchant has no idea, right? They have no idea how the interchange rules. They don't realize they're even being penalized, right? And so now you get to come in and be the hero. But there are situations where, they're doing the best they can. But even so, you now are having this consulting conversation, which helps I think it helps change the game. There's a whole bunch there. I mean, it's a matter of potato, but I would say it's a really big deal. I personally want to get away as far as I can from the cost conversation. And I love to have the efficiency conversation, the productivity conversation, because I just don't want to be pigeonholed into the lowest cost, right? And I think none of us do, right? But this allows us to start saying, hey, are you being the most efficient you can? So
There's a lot of value, right, from all sides with interchange optimization. Now, with that said, right, hopefully now we kind of have a good grasp on what are some of the values, what are some of the benefits. kind of getting into a little bit more who to market this to, who to target with interchange optimization. We had a couple folks, Brian and Wayne, on our last call talking about target markets. James, I know you work with a lot of different merchant types out there, with a lot of different agents that sell to all sorts of different businesses. Where do you see this being the best fit?
It's good you brought that up, Sam, because in my opinion, that was actually the most interesting feedback I got from the event. Was a lot of individual agents that were like, wow, that looks really cool. So the next time I walk into my local pizza shop, I'm going to use this. And I'm like, no, not really. So yeah, it's an important shift because interchange optimization, I mean, there's a couple keys, and I'm glad Eric is with me because he can get a little more specific, but there's a couple of real big keys, at least in my mind. Number one is the size of the merchant account. Interchange optimization, it's a percentage game. So if, a merchant does $4,000 a month in volume, interchange optimization is not really going to matter to them very much. In my opinion, until we get about 30,000 to 50,000 a month in volume, that range is kind of the minimum in my mind, at least, where if a merchant's doing less than that, I don't even really want to look at the optimization. So I think the first thing is the size of the merchant. The second thing is, who is this merchant doing business with in order to get the max amount of optimization? I mean, certainly you have your downgrades, and that cuts across a lot of verticals. So your standard EIRF downgrades, where it's literally they're processing the transactions incorrectly. So I think at the core level, look for that on the statement. If you see that, no matter what type of merchant it is, you can help, hopefully. But really the big, what we're really going for is we're going for B2B and B2G, business to government type transactions. So, there's a lot of different businesses. I'll let Eric speak more to that, but I think it definitely requires a shift in the thinking of the sales rep from kind of the mom and pop shop retail restaurant. One of the reasons we rolled this out when we did is because, of course, those are kind of hard to sell right now, right? So this is a good time to maybe shift and look into other opportunities. But yeah, we're looking for, of course, larger businesses, e-commerce, card not present, large transactions, large volume transactions. So it's a very big shift, I think, for some of the agents. But the good news is it's a really profitable shift, and one that I think a lot more should consider.
Love it. And Eric, I heard James kind of throw you under the bus there. But a little bit of insight into you. You actually have been selling PayTrace really longer than anybody. You actually brought on PayTrace's very first merchant account. So subject matter expert. Within PayTrace, right? What do you see as really that sweet spot type of merchant that can really benefit from interchange optimization?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with James. I mean, the math is the math, and you can't get away from, that the volume matters, and knowing their customer, I agree. I would also just say this: the cool thing about James's tool, ISOAmp, is that I used it, right? And so I typed in some statements, and that's the hardest part. I mean, just to be honest, it's just the data entry, and then it's just a click of a button, right? And you can see, does it help or not, right? And so I would say, yeah, restaurants, probably not a good match for us. I would just say anything that's tip adjust isn't a good match for us, but you might be surprised. I mean, there's a huge difference between like an electrician that focuses on residential and an electrician that focuses on commercial. The residential electrician is probably not going to have a whole lot of downgrades. Maybe they might, right? They might have a lot of IRF charges, and there could be some savings there. But for sure, the commercial electrician is going to be doing that with B2B transactions, and I'm pretty confident that something's going to happen there. So, but the thing is, if you've gotten all the way to the point where you're about to do a proposal, it's a click of a button to see, and if you don't like it, then just pull it back off if it doesn't add value to the conversation. Right.
So I hear a request: basically take a few merchant statements and plug them in and hit that interchange optimization button and see what happens, right? You might be surprised.
I'd ask
awesome.
James if he thinks that's true or not, but I mean,
that's I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah, I think it's like and even some examples. I think when we did our podcast, Eric, and I talked about a place I went to that was auto repair place that was doing maybe $30,000 a month, and I was able to save them. I mean, a lot, $500 a month because of the downgrades. They were processing it incorrectly. So you never know. And I think before this was always kind of this guessing game. So I think what we've enabled is, take that extra 10 or 15 minutes so you don't have to guess. You can actually say with confidence, I can save you this much money.
Exactly. Now, we had a few folks on our call that were a little bit more savvy. They've been doing their homework. I'm going to call out Jennifer, Sue, and Barbara, but they came in and they asked, um, there's some interchange changes coming up specifically in July. And how does this tool, this ISOAmp tool, James, how is that going to reflect that in the future when we do have these types of interchange adjustments?
Sure. So it's actually a really quick answer. It's one of the great things about our tool. We realized really, really early on that, interchange was its own thing and that we needed to have a separate kind of source of truth is what me and my lead developer, Jack, call it. And so our source of truth is the interchange table. Now, what's interesting, and as Eric knows, I showed him this, one of the weird challenges we ran into with this new feature was we're like, well, interchange is always interchange. Well, no, not really. It actually changes a lot. So what happens if you get to July and you try to run one of these, and you're like, here's what you'll save moving forward. So when you go into the tool, one of the very first things that you have to select is the month and year of the statement. And we will use the interchange table as it was during that time. So when these changes come out, we're literally going to create a new interchange table that reflects July 2020 or October when that, every time it changes, there's kind of a new version of the interchange table. But that way you can do a true apples to apples comparison by simply putting in the month and year of the statement as it exists then, so we can actually compare it correctly. But for obvious reasons, we keep our tool extremely up to date with interchange adjustments.
So basically what you're saying is if I go back to November of last year, it's the only statement I can find, and it's the only one I want to give you, you'll still be able to get an accurate description.
Yeah, and the reason that's so important, Sam, is because if you did that and you started to key in all these interchange items and the amounts, when you went to match them, it wouldn't work if we didn't have that feature, because it would look like a bunch of the categories were either lower or marked up or whatever. So our matching algorithm is we have to match it based on what they paid. Does that match this fee type? And since they change a lot, we have to show different versions of interchange. So I'm not sure how far back we go at this point. I think we go back 6 months. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to check it. But yeah, we go back a little ways, and then moving forward, we're going to keep these fresh versions of interchange.
Fantastic. Now, we had a lot of folks on this call that were not super familiar with PayTrace, Eric, and a lot of functionality questions. I don't want to get too in-depth, but one of them was, is this only for a virtual terminal, right? Interchange optimization. Is this only for card not present virtual terminal transactions? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I threw you under the bus on the call for that question. So great
Right
question.
back at you.
Yeah, exactly. Nicely done. The answer to that is PayTrace does have a virtual terminal. I think Sam used the word flagship product, and I think that's probably pretty true. A lot of folks log in and have a transaction. Interchange optimization tends to have the biggest impact in a card not present environment. So I think you've heard that thread before. But the reality is, as you dig into interchange, you'll realize that interchange optimization, especially on the B2B side, is more important than card present and card not present. And so a lot of people are like, that's the first differentiator in their head, is they're like, was it swiped or was it not? And I would say that if you look at the interchange qualifications, the first questions you should be asking is it eligible for level 2 and level 3? Excuse me, a little cough there. And then secondly, is it key entered or swiped? And so that's just it's a new paradigm, I think, for some folks, just to kind of start having those considerations. But the answer to the question is, we do interchange optimization on everything. Like our app, we have an app for iPhone and Android. You can do level 3 through that. And so it doesn't really matter where it's coming from.
One other thing too, if I could interject, is a way that I used to sell this is, for instance, I'm thinking right now of what was it? It was like an Italian restaurant. It was like a chain that I had sold, and you wouldn't think interchange optimization would matter there, but they had a really big catering side, which was all B2B. And so what we did there is it was so valuable that we actually set up a separate merchant ID number for the catering business, which went through a virtual terminal. So they still had their physical location stuff, but I think to Eric's point, generally speaking, most of the optimized transactions are going to be key entered anyway. And so sometimes it even makes sense to separate off and create a different account to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Mileage may vary depending on that merchant, right? I mentioned this
Right.
before, but merchants are not cookie cutter, right? Not one
Exactly.
size fits all.
Yep.
Um, Eric, you mentioned mobile app. A couple ones that we had a lot of questions on were integrations like e-commerce, ERP. Do we get the thumbs up on those types of things?
Yeah, I'm looking at some great questions from Frank, Reggie, Jesse, Kelly, Chris, Lisa. Integrations are hot, right? I mean, they're a big deal in our industry. The answer is if they connect with PayTrace, we're gonna provide that service for them. But there are a lot of integrations that are out there that are yet to come. So there are some specific ones. Hey, what about XYZ? And I would just say, hit up our team and we'll let you know if we have an integration for that. So
Fantastic.
I would say that's probably the biggest question. The integration question is the biggest question after you hit submit on ISOAmp. And so you see this huge number, like James mentioned, $13,000, right? One statement he looked at. Holy moly, 13 grand, right? I'm going to close that account. Well, I'd say next question is how are they actually running the transactions and how integrated are they? You may find that, man, they are in a proprietary software and they made a $13,000 commitment to that software, 13 grand a month commitment to that software. The business owner may not have known that when he made that decision. So you might be the bearer of bad news when you come in with that proposal. So knowing what that integration is and what your options are is going to be your next level of consulting. So it's a great question.
Yeah, and definitely a good space to start looking into as that space is really growing in this industry. James, I want to get back to the tool a little bit because we had a lot of questions about different functionalities. And one thing that I really like about ISOAmp is how flexible it is. You and your development team really went in and looked at all the different perspectives of folks that are selling and try to make it mold really to their sales models, right? So there's a question in here from Heidi. What if they're not priced currently on Interchange Plus? What if a merchant is currently flat rate priced or tiered pricing? How does the tool manage those types of merchant statements?
Sure. So first of all, we definitely would be moving away from the concept of interchange optimization for the simple reason that we have to know what the interchange currently is, like line by line, in order to map it to the optimized category. So you wouldn't be using the interchange optimization feature on the tool in this situation. However, it really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, we're comparing total fees to total fees, or I like to call it effective rate to effective rate. So what our tool does is our tool right off the bat, based on the business type you selected, the average ticket size you gave us, we have an algorithm that runs in nearly real time. And what it does behind the scenes, I won't dive into because it's really complicated, but I think on average, we perform about 50,000 calculations during that 200 milliseconds that it runs. And that's for the average statement, varies a lot, but we actually build a mock interchange table. Like in our system, you don't see it, but there's literally an entire interchange table where we basically said, this is the most statistically probable interchange table for this particular merchant. Now, having said that, is it, totally accurate? No, it's, if anybody's sold merchant services longer than 2 months, you know that you'll have a merchant that's a pizza shop that does 20,000 one month and 20,000 the next month, same pizza shop. And the interchange effective rate will vary 40 basis points, 20 basis points. So there is an inherent amount of variation here. So it's kind of like predicting the unpredictable, So it's not going to be totally accurate. So what I tell reps is, if they're less than 30,000 in volume, which is normally the case for these alternate, types anyway, tier pricing, flat rate pricing, our tool works very good in those situations. It's fairly accurate. We also go pretty aggressive with the interchange estimate, which we can actually fluctuate. Like we have some individual ISOs that are like, we don't want to be aggressive. We want you to take what you think interchange is going to be and add 20 basis points. We can do that on a per tenant basis. But without that, we're pretty aggressive. We actually assume that there's not a lot of downgrades. We assume that they're processing correctly. We don't assume level 3 stuff, but we generally assume they're processing pretty correctly. So as a result, we're going to err on the side of showing more savings. Now, you get up above 30,000 in volume, you start to run into some problems. We still estimate interchange, and it's oftentimes very good. It's oftentimes not. Usually the reason it's not is because we only have like 26 business types represented. And these larger merchants, they maybe do things in a slightly different way. So maybe it's a hardware store that also has a self-storage facility. You know, how is our algorithm supposed to figure that out? You know, so the problem is once you get above 30,000, if we're off by 10, 15, 20 basis points on interchange, it starts to become a bigger and bigger problem. Once you get up to 100,000, it's like, don't even try it. You know, you're going to have to get a statement that shows interchange. So I think the big takeaway is we can compare. It doesn't matter what they currently have. We can make a switch to interchange plus. However, the larger the merchant, the more necessary it is to have at least some data on the underlying cost, because otherwise you're asking us to make a guess that could be pretty far off.
Yeah. So a lot of that built into there, but there is some ways that you can leverage the system for different types of merchant
Absolutely.
pricing.
And, you know, a lot of times they'll still have stuff. I've seen a lot of flat rate accounts where they actually do have an interchange table, you know, in there, and they show it. So in that case, put it right in there. So if there's an interchange table, put it in and we'll be able to help you out for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely best case scenario.
Sure.
A couple more questions, and James, I'm going to pick on you for a couple of these here because I think they're very interchange and tool specific. One of them was with, where did it go? I lost it. Oh yeah, there a bunch of people were asking about hidden markups within interchange. It looks like Mick, Maya, and Cheryl were asking about this, but can you elaborate on?
I wish I would have demoed that actually now I think about it, because it's really interesting. So what happens in that case is, let's say I put in small ticket, you know, regulated debit or something. And when I put it in, let's say I put in from the statement, I enter it in our interchange optimization feature. I put the total amount over. Well, what our system will do is our system will identify and it'll give you the options and say, you know, we think it's this one, but if it's this one, it's marked up. And it really does a pretty good job of this. It shows you the nearest ones, because what I find is interchange markup, and to clarify what we're talking about, I mean, there are processors out there who literally mark up interchange. And so instead of showing what it actually is, I just had one the other day that was marked up 7 basis points. So every interchange category was marked up 7 basis points. In my experience, there's 2 ways it's marked up. Our tool will catch both of them. Number one, it's actually marked up, meaning they change the percentage cost. And in that case, our tool will tell you, well, if it's this category, we know what it is and it's not that. And what will happen is once you match up the interchange types, when you get to that final stage, we already automatically calculated the interchange markup savings, and that will be put as a line item on your proposal. The other way is that they just hide additional fees. So there's an interchange table. Here's this big list of kind of incomprehensible stuff. And right in the middle of that is a fee. And then there's maybe 3 or 4 of those, you know. The way our system will catch that is when you try to key that in, it'll say, we don't know what that is. And you'll realize, wait, maybe that's not interchange. It doesn't seem to work on the interchange table. Okay, hold on, that's a fee. So both ways, you know, should be pretty easily identifiable in our system, just because we know what interchange is. And so when you try to key in something that's not right, we'll tell you.
And I think that's so cool because, you know, if you really are trying to analyze a merchant statement and you've got something in front of you, you're typically not going to notice an extra 5 basis points here or an extra, like you said, 7 basis points there. Those are some of the trickiest hidden fees that this tool is really going to help eliminate. I think that's a really awesome ethical practice. Now, one last thing, a lot of these different agents, ISOs, have different pricing schedules. How does ISOAmp really accommodate
Sure.
more than one schedule?
Yeah, so we have a concept in our system called a program. And so a program, you know, we could have called it a pricing template. The reason we didn't is because it also has the Schedule A information. So our system not only calculates savings, it also calculates margin, because we think that's just as important. Like if I'm a rep, I don't want to just know I can save the merchant money. I mean, of course I can save them money. I could just charge them nothing and I would save them money. But that's not what I want to do, because I'm in business to make money as well. So we want to have the margin on there. So we have the concept of a program. A program is simply, again, we have a fee. So I'll give you an example. A program might contain a fee called the Visa, MasterCard Discover basis points of markup. And it might be 40 basis points is the default amount. The lowest I can go is 10, and there's a Schedule A cost of 3. You know, all of that information, the default amount, the margin control on the high side and the low side, and the Schedule A cost, That's all contained in that one fee. And there are multiple fees that are part of one program. So because of that flexibility, and I get into a lot of other flexibilities that exist there based on volume, average ticket, et cetera. But the long story short is we have an unlimited number of programs per tenant. So you can put, you could put thesis, first data, put as many as you want. It doesn't matter. We have ISOs that have literally 12 or 13 different Schedule A's that are in the system, and we support all that. And even pricing templates too. Like you might have one Schedule A that you can sell flat rate, interchange plus, or surcharging. Well, that would be 3 programs because those are totally different, pricing components. But we support all that flexibility. And then once you put everything in, you put that interchange optimization in, you can go back and click choose program, and you can look down through and see how much would I save and how much would I make on each of those options, and then choose the one that's the best fit.
Again, just shout out to the flexibility of this thing. The first time I went into it, I'm like, okay, we're just going to be able to plug in a statement and it's going to be able to pop out something. But I hadn't realized how much variation there was amongst all these different agents, all these different processors. Yeah. So it was just so cool to see, all of the different capabilities of this tool. It's real slick. Eric, you've been quiet for a while. I'm going to wrap this up here with.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. I'm enjoying it.
We had a lot of people on this call that were fairly new to PayTrace and some of the things that we had to offer. But afterwards, right, there's a lot of interest in this interchange optimization stuff, right? If somebody is interested in utilizing PayTrace or working with our gateway, how do you recommend they get a hold of us and start leveraging that technology?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that question. I would definitely encourage you to contact my team at sales@paytrace.com. So that's a group box for everyone in our department, and we'll schedule a time to chat with you and see what kind of opportunity you're looking at, and kind of go from there. So we'll begin the conversation, but the sales inbox is really the best way to go on that.
Cool, perfect. So sales@paytrace.com if you're interested. We'd love to have that conversation. James, I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'm going to add a layer to it, right?
Sure.
1, how are people going to get a hold of ISOAmp? And 2, I think our most common question, which is no surprise, what is the cost of this tool? So if you can tackle both of those.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with cost. So the investment that we look at is right now we're primarily targeting ISOs. When we say an ISO, that could mean anything from an organization with 300, 500 sales reps, all the way down to maybe an individual sales representative that has established a local brand and maybe has an assistant and a telemarketer, So the serious bank card professional all the way through to the larger ISOs. So we have 3 different price points. I would encourage you to go to getisoamp.com. So getisoamp.com and click on pricing. And all 3 of these are clearly identified there. We're not hiding any pricing. We don't make you reach out to us to get a quote. It's right there. So $95 a month is up to 3 users without this optimization feature. So this is somebody who is not selling the larger merchants. They're selling the mom and pop shops or whatever, but they do want a serious branded experience with all the features other than optimization. $195 is up to 3 users with optimization. So $195 a month. With both of those options, we've waived the setup fee. And so we set it up for you. We put your program, you send us Schedule A's, we put them in for you. You don't have to worry about that. We add your logo to the proposals. We brand it. We add your color scheme, set up a custom domain. We do all that. Then the third and the most common one, we really created those 2 as kind of a new thing because of this feature and knowing that there were some serious professionals that would want it. This tool really does cater to ISOs. We have all the user management stuff and all of that in place. So for those institutions, it's a per user per month fee. It's $29 a month per user. We have bulk rates that are right there on the website. One thing I would point out here, because it's a really commonly asked question ISOs have, we don't do like a license model. It's super frustrating with, all the recruiting that goes on and the turnover and like, I have to reassign this license to this person. We just work it out with you and say, okay, how many agents are going to log into the system? Okay, let's work out a price. And then it's a recurring model. And then in addition to that recurring monthly fee, there is a $195 per month fee to have the optimization as well as a marketing campaign feature that we have. So kind of that, advanced add-on, but it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 users or 3, or whatever that's there. So per user model is the most common. That's for people with more, 4 to 1,000 users. And then if you just have 1, 2, 3 users, we have those lower end models, pricing models for you.
Excellent.
Oh, and how to contact us. I forgot that part of the question.
Yes.
Just go to, the best thing you can do is email sales@getisoamp.com. Sales@getisoamp.com, or if you just go to www.getisoamp.com, you can actually click on a free demo, and our team will follow up to set up a demo with you there as well.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a bunch of links and things in the description, so check that out. I also wanted to call it out. We did announce an ebook that went live on our call the other week, and just want to put it out there. You guys broke the internet.
Yes.
There was so much traffic.
That was my first time with that, so
there was so much traffic. It literally took the page down. So
yes.
I think that's pretty freaking cool.
It
But it is up and running, and you can download this ebook for free. We've got a link in the description, so please check that out if you want to learn a little bit more about interchange optimization and how we can help benefit our merchants. Guys, I just want to say thank you for taking the time on this follow-up, and appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, man. That was great.